The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike, back with Sam. How you doing, Sam?
Mike, it's December 22nd. Is it too late to update the Christmas list? Because I want a better basketball team. I am doing all right.
Put the Houston Rockets in that game. Replace the Suns with the Houston Rockets.
First of all, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to anyone who is listening to this a couple days from now. We just are not quite fresh off. We're 12 hours removed from another loss, this time at the hands of the Detroit Pistons. It was another rough weekend for the Suns. I think this is one of those can't cherry coat episodes where we just have to talk about, like, in bold terms, bold, underlined, italicized, this team is bad. They are not working. They are technically above 500. They're 14-13, but it certainly doesn't feel that way, and certainly feels also, if you know, not to go too far ahead here, but if you look a little bit ahead at the schedule of the teams we're playing in the next week and a half, certainly feels like maybe they won't be above 500 for too much longer. So I think this is going to be a tough one, but we got to rip the Band-Aid off at a certain point, right?
6-12 since going 8-1. If you think about it just that way alone. It's brutal. And look, even during the 8-1, we had conversations about, hey, they're winning games, but there are some signs in these stats that show that maybe they're winning games that they shouldn't, and they're probably not as good as this 8-1 record. But this is much worse, I think, than that. And it's really, like, look, they just lost to two teams that were not very good. The Indiana Pacers have been regularly disappointing their fans this season, and the Suns did not find a way to win that game. The Detroit Pistons, for whatever reason, are just built in a way that the Suns cannot defend. And I think one of the obvious reasons for that is their best player, Cade Cunningham, is a large wing, and the Suns have no large wing defenders outside of Kevin Durant. And honestly,
shout out what Cade is doing right now, by the way.
He's really good, yeah.
I think for a while there, you know, especially under the Monty regime and everything, there was kind of this belief that maybe Cade wasn't it. He's it. It's year 4 for him, and he's really putting it together in an interesting way. But also, yeah, the Suns couldn't defend him, and they can't defend anyone.
They can't defend him. They can't defend anyone, and I think they are going to struggle with teams that have larger players like that, and especially if they don't play any of their defenders that could actually help out in that scenario. We're going to talk about all of that, but even Kevin Durant, I will say, he's come back from injury. He's played a few games now. The defense has not been as good as it was early in the season for him, which could be just some level of coming back from injury, or it could be a lack of focus. The fact that the team around him hasn't been healthy. Like, for example, yesterday's starting lineup, do you know how many minutes they played together before they started that game against Indiana?
Before?
Yeah.
Well, what even was the starting lineup? Tyus, Beal, KD, Royce, Nurkic?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, like 100?
0.
Oh, okay.
They hadn't played a single minute together.
Okay, fair point.
At all. So, like, they were just a lineup that just hadn't played, at least this season, together at all. Obviously, Tyus wasn't on the team last year, so they wouldn't have played together last season either. But there's just no way for this team to get itself going, and they continue to lose against teams that, honestly, it's tough for me to even say that they should win those games, because all of the statistics right now point to the Suns just being a bad team in general. It's not working right now. The team is not working.
I still find a way to be disappointed because, like, these last two games were at home.
It's
these
awful
are
for
these
those
are
home fans
These are home games,
holding their hot dogs. Hot dogs.
Hold off on that, because we will have to talk about that at a certain point. Maybe the only positive thing that happened this week. But yeah, these are home games that you should be able. They're favored. Vegas
Yeah.
continues to favor them in this game, even without Booker
Yeah, you
yesterday.
can win a lot of money on the Suns if you just
Betting
fade them
against
every
the Suns
game.
right
Yeah.
now. I think they were favored by 6 or 7 points last night. I can't remember exactly what it was, but that was without Booker because the odds makers were saying, look, they're at home. They have Kevin Durant. You know, they're shooting well. Doesn't matter, apparently. I mean, you look at the team's stats right now. They are 9th in field goal percentage, 4th in 3-point percentage, and they actually take a lot of threes this year, which is what we asked them to do. They're 7th in free throw percentage. They're a fairly good offensive team. They just can't. I mean, they're still not a good enough offensive team to be like, you know, if we're top, but like putting them up against the Celtics, Thunder, whatever. But we're not even at the point. We're asking them now, Mike. We're asking them to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Here's
And
a
they may
crazy
not.
stat.
Yeah.
Basketball Reference issues playoff probabilities, not just based on, you know, every day of the season. They issue a new report, not just based on team record, but based on, you know, net rating, point differential, strength of schedule, remaining strength of schedule, all those factors. The Phoenix Suns, as I woke up this morning, 11th in the Western Conference. They're not even in a play-in spot. Do you want to know what Basketball Reference says their playoff probability is as of today? This is not to make a 9th or 10th seed play-in game. It's to finish in one of those 8 spots that ultimately advances to the first round. Do you have a guess?
I don't really want to know.
You don't want to know? Are
I
you
mean,
sure?
I gotta know. You gotta tell me. I just
17%. That's
Yeah,
what
that
Basketball
sounds about
Reference
right.
says. 17% chance. 1 in 6. Is that the team you want to risk going further all in on Jimmy
Okay.
Butler for? A team
Yeah.
that has a 17% chance of making the playoffs as we stand?
Let me explain.
You want
a
to
little
dig the hole deeper? Are
I
we
know
sure?
what you mean. Yeah, because let's talk about how good they are, and in better terms, how bad they are so far this year. I want to break down some of the stats here, and then we can talk about if there is a way to fix it. And then I think we need to really break down and dig into what if it's not fixable. What is the worst case scenario for this team, and what happens if they wait too long to pull that lever, I think, or should they pull it now? Because, look, the biggest issue for this team so far, without a doubt, is injuries. And I know that's not like, it's not necessarily an excuse in a way that just will explain all of the problems, because when they're healthy and when they play together, it's still not good. And we'll talk about that. But right now, they've played 27 games. The big three, their combined games missed, 19. In those games, at least one of the big three has missed 19 games so far of those 27 games. So now, question if they should even be called a big three anymore. Fair. Because the stats don't really point to that being true. But they're 3 players that make the most salary on this team, the 3 players that are supposed to be the 3 best players on this team so far, have not played together enough so far this season. So we'll start there. That's a problem. Now, I talked about the starting lineup yesterday, playing 0 minutes together. There's only one lineup for the Suns that have played over 100 minutes, which is kind of fairly normal at this time of year. There's, starting lineups are the ones that have played a ton of minutes together, and then coaches tend to play around with other lineups. But only one lineup has played over 100 minutes for the Suns this season, and it's the starters, who have played 112 minutes together so far this season. And to give you a reference point for that, the Houston Rockets, one of the better teams in the Western Conference so far, is to some a surprise so far this season. Their starting lineup,
a healthy start too, right?
That's the important. Yeah, that's the important frame of reference here.
Yeah.
Their starters together have played 372 minutes.
But you know
over
what?
250 minutes more than the Phoenix Suns, more than 3 times as much as the Suns starters have played so far this season.
I would say it's 2 things. The first thing is injuries, as you're pointing out. There's another factor in there, though, which is that the Houston Rockets have landed on a starting 5 that they can open a game with and they can close a game with.
100%.
What a remarkable privilege that the Phoenix Suns don't have, because, so their only lineup there with over 100 minutes, Yusuf Nurkic is in that lineup then, right? Because it's the starters.
It's tight. Okay, I'm gonna
But
break
how
down
many
some
games?
numbers of that.
How many games though has Nurk played like 16 minutes this season because he just can't be relied on. So you can't build a starting 5 unit that's going to have like 500 minutes by the end of the season if you don't have a center who you can even trust to play 20 minutes. Or, a guy who I love, but I know we're going to talk about Tyus Jones, like if you can't trust Tyus Jones to close certain games, right? We don't have the combinations on the roster that maybe we do and Bud's just not trying them, but it doesn't feel,
right? Yeah.
It doesn't feel like we have landed on reliable units of guys.
The best players, if you want to call them what they are, can't really play together on this team right now. It's just not working. I'm going to break down some of the big 3 stats in a minute, but since we're on the starting lineup, they've played 10 games together. They've played 112 minutes. Look, it's not a huge sample size right now. In that starting lineup, Tyus Jones, Devin Booker. By the way, Devin Booker now injured. And I'm not going to put all of this on Devin Booker. Like, if you look at a lot of the stats for Devin Booker this season, you have to factor in the fact that he's played the most games so far, and he has played without Kevin Durant, he has played without Bradley Beal, and he has had all the defensive attention on him. And I actually think he's started to play pretty well as of recent, and it really sucks that yearly groin injury, if you want to call it that, has come around at this moment where he's actually started to play really well. His efficiency has picked up. His playmaking has continued to be great. He's not really turning the ball over. The defense has not been great, but I think there's an element of once he has some offensive help, he can get better at that. But let's just cover the starting lineup. Tyus Jones, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, Jusuf Nurkic. 112 minutes played so far this season. Negative 16 net rating. Now, for those of you who don't know about net rating stats, that means they get their asses kicked every game. That's what that means.
Well, or like, occasionally, because there is a variance, right? So like
they start in a hole, right?
Here's what happens.
Indiana
Here's what
game,
happens.
they pulled
Here's what
ahead,
happens.
right? That happens occasionally.
No. Sometimes they, on the high end of the spectrum, like a high outcome for that unit is they break even, and then to counteract that, the next time they'll get mega ass kicked. So instead of
the
a minus
beginning
16,
of the
it'll be
third
like
quarter,
minus
they go
30.
down. Yeah, exactly. So we're talking, by the way, just to dig into that, 103.7 offensive rating.
That's
Sam.
wild, man. I mean, I can't help but continue to think that it's just they don't look inside. Did you watch the Pacers game, right? You had to watch it. You had to watch it on a delay.
Yes, by the way, but let's just continue that. That means those of you quick maths, 119.8, basically 120 defensive rating, which makes them
That's bad.
awful
No, that's bad.
lineup.
That's bad. But let's just be clear: 103.7 offensive rating in the current NBA. When you are a team that takes a lot of threes, as the Suns do.
Yeah.
I don't know.
With two All-Stars? Yeah. In that lineup?
Yeah, I can't even. Well, I was about to compare them to the 2011 Bobcats. I can't even think of like a comparable, team
awful.
with two All-Stars. But the reason I asked about the Pacers game, I know it's low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
You saw the clip where I think it was KD got doubled.
Right.
Jusuf
Nurkic goes up
threw
for
a pass
dunk.
over to the top. Jusuf
Yeah.
Nurkic goes up for a dunk,
And
one-handed,
it hits the
slips out of
scoreboard,
his-
basically.
Yes, you
Yeah.
saw it.
Yeah.
Everyone knows. The Suns know. The coaching staff knows. The opponents certainly know. What are you supposed to do with that? The guy can't make layups. He can't make a one-handed dunk. You can't pass to him off a pick and roll. You can't even look inside the paint, right? So it's like they're taking all these threes. They're also, by the way, really, really, really efficient corner three-point shooting team. And this has been a hallmark of Bud's systems in the past with Milwaukee, and it's transferred over to Phoenix, which is why this is so frustrating. They take a ton of corner threes. They make a ton of corner threes. Other than layups, that is the most efficient shot in basketball. The problem is, if you can't make your fucking layups, then you can't build an efficient offense around that. And so I continue to wonder if just maybe so much of this will change as soon as there is literally anyone else in the center position for this team. That's what I cling on to. The little bit of hope that I cling on to is that they're a Daniel Gafford trade away from everything being fine. Because also, as much as I talk about 17% chance of the playoffs and all that, They're also 2 games out of the 5th seed in the Western Conference.
Yeah.
That's what the West is. It's the Lakers and the Suns and the Spurs are in it now, and the Timberwolves and the Nuggets, who are about to play 2 times, and the Kings. I would argue right now the one team that I think the Suns are less of a disaster than, out of all the teams that I just listed, the Clippers are in there too, by the way. Right. They continue to be good. Mm-hmm. The one team we're less of a disaster than is the Kings.
Well, the Timberwolves have been healthy, and they're not very good.
Let me look up their net rating right now.
Yeah,
I mean, I think the Timberwolves
it's probably better than the Suns, but
I think
they've been healthy.
They have major issues for sure, and obviously, DiVincenzo is not good this season, and the Randall trade did not work. I mean, everyone knew it wasn't going to work, but they're also 5th in defensive rating and 9th in net rating. So it's like, are you going to bet on them?
No, it's
in the long term, or Phoenix, who can't even be net rating positive right now.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if Phoenix was healthy, I would feel more confident. There's just no reason for them to expect them to be healthy. Now, I just want to make the case that the problem isn't just Jusuf Nurkic, and I know you don't think it's just Jusuf Nurkic.
I don't think it's just Jusuf Nurkic, but I just do
based
think
on how you're
else.
describing things, you would assume that the team would have the worst net rating when Jusuf Nurkic is on the floor so far this season, right? That's something that you would probably assume.
Mm-hmm.
It's Bradley Beal. It's Bradley Beal, and it's Bradley Beal by a lot. Like right now, when Jusuf Nurkic is on the floor, the Phoenix Suns have a minus 4.9 net rating. When Bradley Beal is on the floor, they have a minus 7.3 net rating. It's significantly worse when Bradley Beal is on the floor than when.
Can I hazard a guess that's? I mean, yes, Brad has been in many respects awful, although he can still make shots. But Brad is the guy who most commonly is playing without the presence of Kevin Durant on the floor.
Okay, let me read you some stats then. I have the lineup combinations for the big 3.
All right, go for it.
Okay, let's start with the best combinations of the big 3 so far. The number 1 net rating combination of any of the big 3 on the floor is Bradley Beal on with Devin Booker and Kevin Durant off the floor. So the best the Suns play in any combination of the big 3 is when Bradley Beal plays without Devin Booker or Kevin Durant. It's a plus 17.
That's actually the exact opposite of what I just
I know.
What I was just guessing would be the case.
I know.
Okay.
And now I can read you some more here. The second best combination is Kevin Durant by himself, and that's a plus 10.3. After that, it starts to make more sense, and there's a lot more minutes for this. And it Devin Booker and Kevin Durant on the floor with Bradley Beal off is a plus 6.05. And that's, to me, I think that's 219 minutes. That's the best evidence we have that this team tends to work when their 2 best players play together. But that's with Bradley Beal off the floor. That's a plus 6.5. The next best combination, this is when it gets to negatives, by the way. We're already in negatives in the net rating, is Devin Booker on with Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal off. That's basically even. You're breaking even right there. It's minus 0.03. So, right, it's basically you're playing teams at a standstill, and then you lose at the end of the game, which is how all of those games have gone.
That's a game-losing free throw at the end.
And by the way, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, all on the floor together is a minus 0.39. Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal together. So the 2 players who started in the Pistons game, the 2 stars, if you want to call them that, quote unquote stars, minus 11.
Yikes.
Net rating. And then Devin Booker and Bradley Beal together with no Kevin Durant, minus 19 so far this season in 191 minutes. When Bradley Beal is on the floor, if he's on the floor with another of the big 3, they suck. They're just bad.
Why?
I think there's a lot of things that we can talk about with some of the reasons why this does or doesn't work. But the one thing we can conclude from this before we even get into that is that it doesn't work. Right? Like right now, Bradley Beal on this team sinks every lineup that he's in, except for the real small sample size of 90 minutes where he plays without guys, which is probably like a minute or 2 a game. It's not like they've had long stretches where Bradley Beal plays without Devin Booker or Kevin Durant. So there's nothing really to glean from that. But I think it's a combination of a few things, right? One, I think it's defense more than anything else, right? And you could look at some of these defensive ratings to really find out why. When Devin Booker and Bradley Beal share the court together, they have a 130 without Durant. They have a 130 defensive rating.
Jesus.
And so that's just really, really awful, right? And you know, you could, in some ways, you could look at Bradley Beal individually and say he's trying hard defensively. In other ways, if you really focus on Bradley Beal's defense this season, it's not good. And it's really not been good. But I think a lot of that has to do with the size combinations that they're putting on the floor, which we can talk about in a minute. But I guess what's your initial reaction to hearing these numbers? I guess I didn't share them with you before the podcast, but I've been looking at them a lot lately.
Yeah, it is a little bit shocking, I guess, the extent to which, to your point, he's kind of sinking every lineup. His defensive resistance off the ball is just not there. And like I understand that. I've been watching that and I see it with my eyes. I'm not precisely sure what the solution is other than that you have to try and bring him off the bench. You have to try it. Right? That's what those numbers say. Try and bring him off the bench. Because you want to talk about Tyus. You want to say that Tyus should be brought off the bench.
Listen, life's all about leveling up. Whether you're handling business on the field or kicking it in your zone, you like to celebrate with cigars that match the moment. That's why you should link up with Famous Cigars to bring you a wild deal. Right now, you can grab 8 premium cigars for just $8. You heard that right. 8 top-rated cigars at $1 a stick. Top quality brands like Oliva, Romeo y Julieta, and Davidoff. Handpicked just for you and worth over $80. Hit up famouscigars.com/cam and lock in this exclusive deal. While you're there, check out their insane selection of premium cigars, all shipped fresh and fast from their massive 20,000 square foot humidor. That's half a football field. Famous Cigars has been in the game since 1939 and still family owned. So celebrate every win with the folks at Famous. 8 cigars for $8. famouscigars.com/cam.
I think that there's zero reason to continue. Okay. I guess you look at this team, right, and you say they have to work when those big three played together in order for this whole experiment to work. But the other part of it is, in some ways, you have to find a way to get Bradley Beal going if you want to try to trade him. You know, there's a little bit of that, too. You know, in yesterday's game, at one point, he was 8 for 11, and I thought, oh, thank God. At least you could point at that to Miami or another team if you do hit the blow up this team button, which honestly I think is on the table, at least on this podcast, and we'll talk about that later on in this podcast. I don't think it is with Matt Ishbia, to be frank, but we'll talk about that on this podcast. So, you know, I do think that there's an element of they're just too small. I mean, honestly, they're just too small when Tyus Jones, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal play together.
Exactly. So we agree that they're too small. Give me the case, and I guess maybe you already kind of did. You said that you have to get Bradley Beal going. I'm not convinced. I know that they're too small. Watching them, I see that they're too small. I like Tyus Jones, though. You know, he makes $2 million, and he shoots 45% from deep, and Kevin Durant still turns it over a lot, but mostly he fixed the Suns' turnover issue. And so I know he's a defensive sieve or whatever, but why should it be him that goes to the bench? I think you could build a defense that insulates Tyus Jones, who has been really, really good offensively.
I don't know,
and
man.
Bradley Beal might be, based on the net rating numbers you just gave me, Bradley Beal without the other two guys is really good. So why shouldn't it be him? Why shouldn't it be him that goes to the bench?
Because the worst defense that you see the Suns play is when it's a pick and roll defended by Tyus Jones and Jusuf Nurkic. Now,
okay, so so bench Bradley Beal and get any other center besides Jusuf Nurkic. Problem solved.
If you get another center, then maybe yes. But the idea that you're going to get a plus center by trading Jusuf Nurkic is just it's just it's going to be another flawed center. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
it's not going to be
it'll be
like
a flawed
even,
center.
Even
but
Jonas Valanciunas.
We gotta try something, man. I'm gonna explode if we don't try something here. You know, because okay.
Look, Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, if they play without Tyus Jones and Bradley Beal right now, it's a small sample size. But if they play without them, the offense is good, the defense is good. You know, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and Bradley Beal without Tyus Jones right now, without Tyus Jones, the offense is good, the defense is good. It's a plus 30 net rating when those three play without Tyus Jones. It's only 50 minutes, but it's working.
You know what has a plus 16 net rating in 150 minutes? Because we could cut up lineups like this all day. Plus 16 net rating, 122 offense, 106 defense. That would be Tyus Jones, Devin Booker, Royce O'Neal, and Kevin Durant.
The
so
starting
just replace
lineup.
Bradley Beal. Just replace Bradley Beal with Royce O'Neal, and then you have like 3 more inches
I'll give
of
you
height,
even more to that.
6 more inches of wingspan.
The full starting lineup with Bradley Beal replaced by Royce O'Neal is a plus 30 this season.
So just do that.
You can do that.
Just do that.
You're completely sinking any possibility of getting any value from Bradley Beal if you tried to trade him.
We were never going to get value from Bradley Beal. That was always a fantasy.
But why,
with the exception of maybe like, you know, the Jimmy
why
Butler
is it
thing
better
if he
to start
forces his way.
Tyus? Why is it better to start Tyus than Bradley Beal?
Because I think the team would be better. I think we're still trying to salvage the best possible team.
Why would it be better? I guess is the question.
Because of the numbers.
And this is when Devin Booker
we're talking in
back.
circles right now. We're going in circles. What is
I want
what
you
is
to
your
explain
point?
They're still small. That's still a really small starting lineup. And Tyus Jones is not a good defensive player. And if you insulate him by putting him on, you're putting Tyus Jones on some of the best offensive players in the NBA when he's starting.
No, okay,
defensively.
but they're still,
you have to.
They wouldn't. No, but they wouldn't because Royce O'Neal would now be taking those assignments. Are they still small? Yes, we need more athletes, high caliber athletes on this roster. If you don't like that, take it up with James Jones. It's his fault that the roster is the way it is. But it's the best that you could do. Replacing Bradley Beal with Royce O'Neal, you're adding height, you're adding wingspan, you're adding athleticism. Is Tyus Jones still small? Yes, but we're talking about all these numbers. I'm just spitting back what those numbers are telling you, that they have positive lineup combinations with Tyus Jones, including defensively.
Yes,
I see no reason why it shouldn't be Bradley Beal who goes to the bench.
But Bradley Beal's taller is the main reason that I would.
I know
bring
he's taller, but
and also I think you can,
Mike, you're trying to fix one thing. You're focusing on the defense. I'm trying to figure out what's the best overall fit, right? So Tyus improves the offense, and maybe the defense would improve even a little bit more if you add Bradley Beal in there. But then I think the offense would tank. Then we're right back to last year.
I don't think it would. I really don't think it would.
We're right back to last year where we're talking about
last year's
why
an
can't they get
improvement.
into the offense? No. We're talking about why can't they get into an offense? Why are they committing 23 turnovers a game? Because now Tyus is on the bench.
I mean, they're doing that now with Tyus starting. That's happening now.
Just KD is doing that.
Yes, KD's turnovers have been a huge problem. But Devin Booker's playmaking has improved. Last year, they didn't shoot 3-pointers, right? So there was not as much spacing for these guys to actually run an offense. If you have the starting lineup without Tyus, and I think Tyus still plays a lot if he comes off the bench. He plays a lot. Like, I'm not talking about a scenario where he doesn't play at all. I'm talking about a scenario where the combination of Tyus Jones, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker does not play together unless they're playing a team that has zero size. And if you bring Tyus off the bench, he can run a really effective offense off the bench, and you insulate him from having to guard. Like yesterday was such a good example. The Pistons were cutting up the Suns defensively, and the Suns' only counter to that was to try to start switching everything. As soon as they started switching everything, they just went at Tyus Jones every time, and they scored every single time. It was either backing Tyus up all the way to the rim, and when the help came, they hit a 3, or just shooting right over him. It doesn't, to me, it just doesn't really make sense to continue putting Tyus in the position where the defensive options are essentially zero. And Royce O'Neal alone, to me, doesn't fix that. Honestly, if it were me,
I will
and
not-
this is not a perfect scenario, right? If it were me, and none of these are perfect because the roster is flawed. I think that's the real point we're getting to here. But I probably would start Ryan Dunn, honestly.
Well, that was going to be where I went to next. I was going to offer you a compromise, which is still bench Bradley Beal. Let me have my Tyus Jones as a starter. I refuse to scapegoat the third best player on this team who makes $2 million.
It's not scapegoating him to put him on the bench. He would be good off the bench. He's been good off the bench his whole career.
And he'll continue to be good as a starter. I was going to offer you the compromise of Bradley Beal goes to the bench, but if you don't like Royce O'Neal as a starter, we can get even bigger.
No, I like Royce O'Neal.
We can put Ryan Dunn in that spot. Is that enough size for you?
I think
you don't have to switch everything if Ryan Dunn's in your starting lineup. He's just, I mean,
conceptually
Ryan Dunn,
to me.
Well, let's just say, by the way, real quick, because this is a real negative discussion in a way that I feel that honestly we haven't had in a while. Watching Ryan Dunn play defense on Cade Cunningham yesterday, as you know, ultimately the Suns made a fake comeback and whatever, they lost the game, but was one of the most genuine pleasures I've had watching the team this season, and certainly in the past week. Right? The way he navigates screens, the way he was able to defend him in one-on-one situations, he needs to. I mean, when Ryan Dunn initially, he didn't check into the game until mid-second quarter or whatever. When he did, he changed the game immediately. So he needs to, at a minimum, be playing. I mean, our friend David said this on Twitter, 20 minutes a game. I would go even further. He needs to be playing 25, 30 minutes a game.
I'd start him.
I would say, why not? Why the fuck not? Start that guy. Because you never question his effort. He did make a 3 yesterday. I understand the offense, generally speaking, is going to be worse when he's on the floor. But you never, ever question his tenacity. And I still maintain that tenacity is infectious for other guys. It forces other guys to be better in their rotations because otherwise they realize that they're going to look stupid next to this guy who's trying so hard when they aren't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. The defense was pretty good last year, right? We're talking about a defense that was pretty good that is playing most of the same players, except one who's playing a lot, the little tiny guy who starts at point guard. I honestly think if you take Tyus out and play him a lot off the bench, don't get me wrong, we're running a 6-man of the year campaign for him if he comes off the bench here. But you put Ryan Dunn in that starting lineup. Now you have size, you have defensive versatility, you have Devin Booker out there not having to guard guys that are bigger than him. You have Bradley Beal potentially not having to guard guys that are bigger than him. Or maybe they do, right? Maybe Ryan Dunn's on the point guard
and you
in
have
scenario.
Kevin Durant, 7 turnovers per game.
You have Kevin Durant, 7 turnovers per game, but we're talking about a season last year where Kevin Durant had 7 turnovers per game, where they didn't have a defender at Ryan Dunn's size, and they still had a better net rating and a better offensive rating and a better defensive rating as a team last year when they still had those problems. So to me, there is a world where it's an improvement, even if you have the turnovers, except for now they have a guy who comes off the bench that helps with the turnover problem, right? You start Ryan Dunn for a while, and then you bring Bradley Beal out of the game. 5 minutes into the game, you put Tyus Jones in there, and now he's helping you with that scenario, but you're not digging yourself into a hole immediately because you can't guard the best players on the floor for the first 5 minutes of the beginning of the game and the first 5 minutes of the half. And look, in this case, is Jusuf Nurkic still a problem? Of course. It may be an unsolvable problem.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah, you're talking about differences between last year and this year, and I just want to point that out again. There have been some people in my Twitter replies recently who are like, Nurk has always been like this. He's always been... No, he was a serviceable center last year. I understand he always had issues, but he was serviceable. This year, it is different. He is like the worst player in the NBA, and that... I don't know. I continue to not understand exactly what happened there. But when we talk about what are differences between the team, Jusuf Nurkic turning into one of the vertical rotisseries that you use to serve shawarma on defense is a problem. It's a massive, massive issue. And I still am racking my brain trying to come up with a solution for that wouldn't just be... And by the way, Mason Plumlee is no grand solution either. I think Mason Plumlee actually had a decent game against Detroit last night. He's had an okay season for a 32, 33-year-old, whatever he is.
Yeah.
But, like, doesn't look at the rim anymore. to score. And I've watched Mason Plumlee a lot in his career. He's been a veteran on a bunch of good teams. Like I don't know if his knees are shot or what it is, but Mason Plumlee used to be a guy you could throw a lob to, used to be a guy you could pass to in the middle. And yeah, he was never like scoring 20 points a game, but he would look at the rim and try and finish over the top of guys. And he is not doing that anymore. And that is an issue too. It's the overall center rotation that we just can't squeeze any juice out of.
Well, it doesn't look. I'm really trying hard not to put this all on Tyus, because I don't think Tyus has been really good this year, and he has been the third most effective offensive player basically on this team all season. Doesn't turn it over, scores pretty well, has been the best off-ball shooter on the team so far this year, and finds ways to score maybe outside the paint, but on drives pretty regularly because of that floater. So he's been really good. But when he gets screened because he's small. And that means that Jusuf Nurkic is in the middle of the floor guarding two guys every pick and roll when Tyus Jones is involved. And that's not what he's good at. And Jusuf Nurkic is going to be not much better when it's a Ryan Dunn defended pick and roll, but I bet it'll be significantly better because Ryan Dunn's much better. That's just kind of the scenario that we're in.
He'll fight through the screen. He won't die on it. He'll come over the top. He can block a guy from behind. Yeah, no. It's
118 defensive rating when Tyus and Jusuf are on the floor together. When Nurkic is on the floor but Tyus is not, it's a 112 defensive rating. Like, it gets significantly better because that combination together has been really bad this season. Whenever they're involved in a pick and roll, it's easy for teams to generate a pretty good shot when those are the two worst defenders on the team. And there's a lot of really good point guards in the NBA that Tyus ends up guarding. And, like you said, if you put, whether it's sitting, I think there's a scenario where it works both ways, where if you sit Brad or you sit Tyus and you try to start with more size, that it works better. Now, I think it's important to mention that it doesn't solve anything really, in that you might be better with those lineups to start a game, but you still don't have other guys with size to come in to do the things that Ryan Dunn does for the rest of the game. There's just going to be more significant minutes where that doesn't work again. It's just sort of shifting the problem to other lineups, and I do think that still helps significantly, whether it be Bradley Beal or Tyus Jones going to the bench. Just starting with a larger lineup overall, it still helps, but it doesn't solve everything. And by the way, we should talk about
Josh Okogie could play a little bit more. He's been pretty. I mean, I understand he's not the same as Ryan Dunn. The whole thing is that Josh Okogie is 6'4". He's been pretty good in his minutes this year. He was a guy who I questioned at some point in my train of thought last night why maybe we weren't seeing him when the team just looked like they didn't give a shit.
And no Devin Booker too. Like, there's reasons that he could play a little bit more when there's injuries in the lineups as well. I agree with that. Let's talk just a little bit politically. I hate to say this, the problems with benching both Tyus Jones and Bradley Beal. I guess Tyus Jones, after he was signed, immediately released a press release saying he looks forward to being the starter on the Suns. It was pretty clear that
the Suns, savvy move on his part, honestly.
Yeah, it was pretty clear that the Suns told him, if you sign here, you're going to start. We'll start you on this team, and they'll be good, right? They assumed it would be good. Bradley Beal makes $50+ million. A lot of money. And, the Suns kind of begged him to come here and play on this team. Can the Suns culture handle asking either of those guys to come off the bench? Is my question, because I'm not sure it can, honestly.
What is your impression of the Suns culture at the moment?
Bad.
That was going to be my response. What is our culture? We've talked about leadership. I don't know how many conversations we've had about it over the past couple of years. We fire a coach every single season.
Right.
Like what?
You're making promises in order to get guys, promises that come from like probably, honestly, an ownership perspective and maybe not a general manager or coaching perspective in order to get guys on the team, which complicates things in the locker room when you want to make decisions like this that could better the team, not fix a problem, better the team. But are there scenarios where Tyus Jones or Bradley Beal are willing to accept the sacrifices that come with coming off the bench? And
Yeah, I
who's
think-
more likely to do it, I guess?
I think Tyus would be more likely to do it, even though I understand it's a contract year for him. I think Tyus could play really well off the bench and still be offered an MLE somewhere by some team. If he's under the impression, I don't know who his agent is, by the way. Have we looked that up? But if he's under the impression that, you know, he's going to get $15 million, that's not going to happen. But Tyus, every time he opens his mouth, it's just clear he's like such a kind of mature professional, and so theoretically, it would be Tyus if I had to choose between the two.
Yeah.
I don't like that, as I've made clear, but it is what it
I
is.
think there's a lot of people that are saying, well, why not just force Bradley Beal to the bench and then he'll be willing to waive his no trade clause to leave?
Probably, yeah, that's a good point.
Well, I mean, is it? Like, doesn't that sound like something Ryan McDonough would do? You know what I mean?
Yes, it does. I think if those people are willing to go to those lengths to force Bradley Beal to leave, those people should also be open to this mini conversation that we should not tread on for too long, but just like we're talking worst case scenarios. At that point, you know, do I have to say it? Like, do I have to say it out
we do.
loud?
Wait,
Like,
before we get to the blowing it up possibility here,
Yeah,
which
okay.
I think we do have to talk about. I think this team.
I
has
think we
played-
should spend like 5 minutes on it max, but we should cover it.
We talked about internally what could be some potential fixes that help them right now. First of all, playing Ryan Dunn more, changing the starting lineup so that they're not tiny, splitting up the minutes where Tyus Jones plays without Devin Booker or Bradley Beal, but just plays with one of those two instead of both of them at the same time. And then trades. Okay, that's the other thing that we could talk about when focusing on, is this fixable? Now, there's multiple trades that I think were on the table that we can talk about. Fixing the center position, getting a larger wing, and then there's the big one, Jimmy Butler. The question is, for you and for me, because I want to address this too. I made a joke on the Discord recently that I just pose all the questions to you as hot takes and let you figure it out. But I need to answer it too. Are any of these worth it? Sacrificing the assets that it would take in order to fix this team? Now, first of all, Jimmy Butler, the way they played lately, for me, and I'll answer the Jimmy Butler one first. If you could do it for Bradley Beal in the 2031, I think I'd do it.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But I would not include Ryan Dunn. I would not include
would
Oso
not.
Ighodaro, because it's just
No,
like, if you
I would
include Ryan
riot.
Dunn,
I would riot.
maybe I'd include Oso, honestly.
Do not take away my joy.
But you can't include Ryan
Matt
Dunn
Ishbia.
because... Yeah.
You can't bribe me with $2 hot dogs. Do not take away my pride and joy.
I'm at the point where you just can't do that because, look, you just put yourself in the same problem because Jimmy Butler... Yes, the starting lineup itself will make more sense with Jimmy Butler in it, but you put yourself in the same problem when Jimmy Butler doesn't play, whether it's the minutes where he's off the floor or it's the 30 games a season he doesn't play at all.
I think you do, if it's just Brad in 2031, though, as much as I would love to have, you know, a first-round pick, I think you can talk yourself into that one just because, even though Jimmy's older, the mismatch in contract lengths, so Jimmy is an expiring contract, you know, they're gonna re-sign him, but, like, you never know if for some reason that fell through or whatever. Honestly, would it be the worst thing in the world to just salary dump Bradley Beal on another team? I'm not 100% sure.
No, I think I agree. Yeah,
I think there are pathways where you could find a way to continue to just put your head down and build around Devin Booker and whatever. You'd be fine in a couple years as long as you don't sacrifice your young core.
I think Grayson Allen has enough value that, like, if you want a Dorian Finney-Smith, you might be able to do it for Grayson Allen in a second or something like that, right? If you still want to find ways to improve. Because if you start to say, okay, I'm going to give them 2031, I'm going to give them our 3 tradable seconds, I'm going to give them Ryan Dunn for Jimmy Butler, which honestly I think Matt Ishbia might be willing to do if they continue to suck this bad. And he's a psychopath when it comes to just star players right now. You have 0 avenues to improve unless a team really wants Grayson Allen and are willing to give up the more valuable player, which is a player with size, which maybe there is a world where a team wants to do that. But you just don't have any other avenues to improve this team. And you don't really know what they're going to need until you see Jimmy Butler play with them.
Well, I just want to, I think we should quote that Gambo report that he's been saying, which is that kind of, yes, the team is interested in Jimmy, but they want to kind of wait until a couple weeks until mid-January or whatever, and sort of this was all a week ago before these really bad losses, but saying that they wanted to evaluate how the team looks after, I don't know, I guess a couple weeks of maybe seeing the big three together, which is now not happening because of Devin Booker's groin injury. Well, now they have a really tough stretch of these next 5 games coming up. For anyone who doesn't know, it's 2 straight games against Denver, back-to-back of Dallas, Golden State, and then Memphis. Mm-hmm. And to me, it seems really conceivable that they go, I don't know, let's say 1-4 in that stretch. I mean, they could be
under 500 pretty.
They could go 0-5, but I'm going to give them a win. Let's say they go 1-4, and now they're 15-17 going into the new year. I know it's hard to think like Matt Ishbia. Neither of us is Matt Ishbia. Neither of us knows what that much money would do to our brains, but like, does that motivate him more to make a Jimmy trade? Or is there a point before, say, January 15th at which he would kind of come to his senses and be like, or I don't, not come to his senses because that's too subjective of me to say. Is there a point at which even Ishbia would be like, okay, yeah, this ain't it. We gotta go the other direction now.
Yeah. I don't know. But before we get to the other direction, just quickly, the other option, there's option A and option B. Option A being Jimmy Butler. Option B being using your assets to try to improve this team. Grayson Allen's gone. You have Dorian Finney-Smith. Yusuf Nurkic is gone. You have someone. Well, we've done all of those fake trades in the past, so just put one of those centers in his place. Now you have the same team, slightly more lineup versatility, and a center who, quote unquote, could be better. I'm not sure. Honestly, I think you have probably a center that's still not a very good starting center if you look at the league as a whole, and probably the worst starting center on a playoff team if you just look at the playoff teams alone. And that's if you trade Yusuf Nurkic, because I don't think there's a world where you get a much better player for him. Salary-wise, there's just not a lot of centers who are a lot better than Yusuf Nurkic that you can trade for. Like, it's just not, they all make more than him. So it's tough to find a way to do that. Give
me Duop Reith shooting 15 threes a game.
Sure.
And watch how fast this season turns around, baby.
And look, by the way,
so fast. We're skyrocketing up the Western Conference standings.
And if you talk about, like, a lot of people will say, Goga. I want Goga. That's the starting center, essentially, on one of the best teams in the East. That's who Goga is this season. Why would they trade him? On a really good contract.
Yeah, the time to do a Goga trade was last year.
Yeah. Like, we're beyond that. The Goga, I like Goga, Batadze. It's just, there's just no world, I think, where Orlando even considers trading him at this point of the season. He's the starting center on one of the best teams in the East. And they're good. They continue to be good without their 2 best players. And he's a main part of their lineup combinations when they're good. So I don't know. It's like, yeah, he would be awesome on this team, and he's on a really good contract. And yes, we identified that last year, but it's too late now. There's just no world where that happens at this point. So, I don't really even see that one.
Mo Wagner also went down with a knee injury yesterday. I think that's something to monitor. I don't know how serious that is, but all the more reason that Orlando doesn't necessarily have a big man to spare. Yeah.
Yeah. If Mo was healthy, maybe you could say Wendell, and Wendell's constantly injured too. And I don't know. I don't even know that his contract works because he signed an extension. But my second question that is related to what I asked you about Jimmy is, at this point, are we even, has the team played in a way that makes you feel okay about them trading all of their assets that they have left to improve at the wing position and to improve at the center position?
So not necessarily for Jimmy?
Yeah.
What? Well, no. Okay. So if the question is just trade all of the assets they have left, then no, I don't want them to trade all of the assets they have left. I understand they're walking a tightrope now, and maybe that caps their ability in terms of what their ultimate ceiling is for this year. But I honestly, just the way that they're playing, man, I'm totally uncomfortable with digging the hole deeper. I just don't trust it. I don't trust their core.
I think I agree, and I think that's why we have to get to the worst case scenario conversation here, Because if I'm at the point where I'm watching this team and I'm going, I'm just not sure this big three works. And, maybe Jimmy Butler fixes that, and then you find ways to find lineups that actually work around those guys. Like, I think Tyus makes more sense in that case, maybe. And, there are options that make the team better in that way where you can sort of talk yourself into it. You don't have a lot of ways to improve after that, but you do have options there where I think you can talk yourself into it. But the other one, if that's just off the table, and because it's entirely up to Miami, and the other option just doesn't make sense for this team, then what are they doing? What are we doing? What are we doing then?
We're keeping Kevin Durant happy.
And maybe not though, right? There's a world where maybe not.
I don't know. Maybe he wants to play with Jimmy and win 38 games. Maybe he's happy to do that.
The other option, like if Miami says no, and then we're looking at the other option, which is Dorian Finney-Smith and Jonas Valanciunas, we're saying. And that clearly is not enough to save this team. If that's the opinion that you and I have, which right now that's how I feel. And don't get me wrong, I could feel better when if there ever is a stretch of this team being healthy and they look better, maybe I'll feel differently.
I remember the 5-game, stretch I just talked about. If they go 3-2 over these next 5 games, our next Main Feed podcast is going to have a very different tone. We're going to be back. We're going to be shooting back.
And look, I'm not going to deny that. That's who we are. We're, the team, the NBA is what have you done for me lately. And look, we can't just continue to ride off them being 8-1 in their first 9 games. They've looked like a different team since then, and injuries are part of that. But the question is, if we don't think that could fix it, then what is the best way forward for this team? And is there a world where the best way forward is for them to just say, Kevin Durant doesn't deserve to play on a team that sucks this bad, or something like that, do we really want Kevin Durant ending his career in a team that can't figure it out and can't stay healthy? Is it better for the Suns to find a better fit for him? Houston, maybe the one team that has the Suns picks.
Get your picks back.
Get your picks back. Try to get a few young players. And
25, 27, whichever years.
Maybe let Devin Booker fix his body as long as it takes. And maybe Bradley Beal will be willing to go to another team and you get nothing back for him, but at least he's not off the books at that point. Yeah. And then you try to see what you can put together next season, whether it be, I don't know, maybe at that point Devin Booker says, no, I'm out of here.
That's what I was going to say is you have to understand at this point in Book's career, he's 28 years old. He spent 11 seasons with this franchise. If you trade KD, anything's on the table with regard to Book. We can't guarantee that he's going to be open to the next phase of this franchise if that means like a 3 to 4 year rebuild. Now, also, the thing is, like everything we know about Ishbia, I believe that Ishbia could be talked into a rebuild at some point. He's never going to be talked into like a Sam Presti style rebuild where you just tear down everything for 50 million picks or like a Hinkie style process where you're intentionally bad. Right, even in a rebuilding version of the Suns under Matt Ishbia, I think they would probably be trying to be at least a little competitive in the free agent and trade market
this year.
Yeah. So that's the other thing is like, even if you could trade KD and get your picks back, Ishbia is probably not going to be the type who wants to win 16 games in a season. He's probably always going to be. This is just my hunch. Obviously, I don't know the guy, but it does feel like that, right?
It's what he said.
It feels like he would want to be a rebuilding version of the Suns. Is going to be a team that goes 30-52 and makes you feel good. Sometimes when they surprisingly take a game and they actually have a future and young assets. And honestly, Mike, is that much worse than the current iteration of the Suns, which is maybe going to go 41-41 and has no future?
Yeah,
that's what we have to ask ourselves.
And could be held hostage by Kevin Durant at any minute. And by the way, if you trade Kevin Durant, you're doing it with him part of the conversation. Obviously, you're giving him the opportunity to leave. Essentially, yeah. I don't know. I don't really know necessarily what the best way forward is, and I think so much of it will be dependent on how they're playing and how they look when they're healthy. But like, if we've done anything in this podcast, it's make the case that they're not good even when they're healthy. And they haven't been good even when they're healthy so far this year. And there's so many ways to look at this team but it's tough for me to look at how they're playing when they're healthy and say, Jonas is going to fix this. You know what I mean? Jimmy Butler? Yeah, I think there's a world where you can say Jimmy Butler fixes a lot for this team. But not if you give away everything for him. Not if you give away everything.
I think there's a world where Jonas fixes, as crazy as it sounds, I still think there's a world where Jonas fixes it to the extent that they could be a second-round playoff team still. I don't think Jonas fixes it to make them competitive with the Thunder. I don't think so.
Of course not. Yeah,
but I think not. But I think if we're talking about getting back into the conversation of let's at least be pretenders instead of whatever we are now, which is a joke. Yeah, I think the right center replacement would do that. So if that's enough for you,
when Bradley Beal plays, man, they suck when Bradley Beal plays, and that's just so tough for me to believe in it. One of the big three playing has the effect that Drew Eubanks had on the team last year. That's basically what we're talking about this season. And, that's really tough to talk myself into that. Those three, as a combination of players, it's really tough to talk myself into that at this point of the season. They need a stretch where they're winning against good teams. They need a stretch where they're winning against bad teams for me to feel good about this team. They're not even doing that. That's just what's tough for me so far. And look, we talked about it in the offseason. There was rumors that Houston wanted Kevin Durant. And we did a whole podcast that pissed off half the people that listen to this podcast, truthfully, about what if the Suns entertained the possibility of trading Kevin Durant to Houston, because what if this team is bad next year and it doesn't work? This combination of players doesn't work, and you have the opportunity to, fix it in some ways. And look, I think they should probably at least have that idea of a trade in the back of their mind. Supposedly, Brian Windhorst said they were willing to trade Şengün for Kevin Durant, and that's not a perfect player, but it's a really good player to have on your team who's young.
When did he say that?
Could be a future All-Star.
He said that last year, right?
He said that during the offseason.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know if that's still the case.
Oh, of course. I know. But
I think that would have been the case last year.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about a different trade, which is, I don't even want to talk about maybe the names that would be available to the Suns.
And look, I think if you're the Suns too, you have to think about, first of all, if you're even considering the possibility of breaking this team up in any way, you have to think about getting off of Bradley Beal at any way necessary in order to do that. You have to think about getting picks back if you trade Kevin Durant, and I think you have to find a way to try to get some young players back if you do that. But one thing I'll say is they didn't extend Kevin Durant, so Kevin Durant is not on a very long contract. So even in the world where you trade for Jimmy Butler, for example, and then you extend both of them, you still have the ability of trading both of them on longer contracts, and maybe you can get assets for them later. Like, I even see a world where you're like, well, maybe we will have to, blow this team up later. But if you can get off of Bradley Beal and you could sign Kevin Durant to a longer contract, maybe increase the possibility of getting better assets for him because his contract's longer, or maybe increase the possibility of having to trade Jimmy Butler later and getting assets for Butler because his contract is longer. I could see a world where you'd still kind of sacrifice assets for that too. I just don't like it. I think it's some ways maybe just delaying the inevitable. Mm-hmm. Look, I know this is not a very positive podcast, but I don't think there's a lot of people listening to this one looking for that.
Well, would you like to, as a gesture of positivity to those looking for it, 56 minutes in, if you're still here, shall we talk about the concessions?
Yeah, sure.
For a few minutes.
Yeah.
Because this is something that's going to last with the Suns fan base far beyond, hopefully, far beyond Kevin Durant or Bradley Beal or Devin Booker, perhaps anyone on this current Suns roster. There will be family-friendly concessions at the arena. And the one thing, first of all, very savvy move from Matt Ishbia here. I just want to point out the fact that this news was released the day, I think it was after the NBA Cup final when there were no NBA games. Very smart move. It became the NBA story of the day because there was nothing else to report on. Bleacher Report and all the aggregators and everyone picked it up and it went viral and millions and millions of people saw this, basically. So, incredibly smart on Matt Ishbia's part. The one thing I'm not going to give him credit for is no longer charging people $9 for a bottle of water. The fact that is commonplace at other arenas and was ever the case for the Suns, I think is honestly disgusting. But For the rest of it, you can count on me to be buying some $2 glizzies when I'm in town. I'll be there.
It's really cool. It's really cool. $2 for hot dogs, popcorn, water, soda, and what else was it? Chips, maybe? I forget
Chips,
what the
bag
other,
of chips, popcorn, water. Yeah. And a soda. Yeah, soda.
It's really cool for him to do that, and I think it's awesome for people who go to the games. And honestly, they've been bad at home this year, so like it's nice to have something for the people who pay a lot of money to see this team play regularly. To have something that they can look forward to, not just losing more and more money. $9 for a bottle of water, like you said, insane.
It's the bad team stipend, if you will. Your savings on concessions are kind of like a little tax break into your pocket for coming out and supporting a team that continually lets us down.
Yeah. If we're gonna I want to talk about Christmas in a second, but if we're gonna end it with some positivity, I want to give a shout out to Royce O'Neal. Justin Russo, who covers the Clippers, had a great stat on Royce O'Neal. He just had his 7th straight game of shooting over 50% from three on 5 or more 3-point attempts. And only one player has done that with the 3-point line at where it's at right now, and that player was Steph Curry.
Wow.
So Royce O'Neal is in a stretch of shooting from three right now that makes him one of the best shooters in the NBA so far this season. And he's just been really great for the Suns this year. There's a reason why, if you look at the starting lineup with Royce instead of Brad, it's so good. And it's because he's, one, willing to play a role, meaning he doesn't really do much else other than shoot threes and make smart passes, because he also has a really good assist-to-turnover ratio so far this year. I think it's over 4, which is just really good so far this season. Willing to do that, and also because of the size and the defense and his willingness to battle defensively with players that are bigger than him. And look, he does okay. Like, he can't guard Cade. Like, that's just... I think the last time the Suns played the Pistons, Cade made 7 shots in a row with Royce guarding him. But, he's still willing to get in there and battle, and I think that makes a difference overall. But Royce, shout out to Royce. Just been really, really, really good for the Suns this season, and I don't know.
Yeah,
if the Suns end up blowing it up, they're going to get something for Royce.
That's true. I mean, I definitely feel good about his extension, whether they blow it up or not. If they try and continue to compete, I feel good about having Royce O'Neal under contract for 3 more seasons after this one. Really affordable. Averaging a career high at age 31, almost 32 at this point. The last Sun who did that, set new highs in his 30s, won a couple of MVPs. I'm not saying that that's a 1-to-1 comparison, that Royce O'Neal is the new Steve Nash, but hey, you never know. That would be great if he was. Turns into 15 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists next year. No, but in all seriousness, I mean, there's a serious case that they should start him the way he's playing.
Yeah,
it would make them a lot better in the
great contract for him too. Like, they just did a good job with that extension, and he's been playing, I think, even better than his contract says for him this year. Basically doing what Grayson did for the Suns last year, but better defensively.
Yeah, Royce is the new Grayson, and Grayson is the new Eric Gordon, sadly. I think is the way I would describe it.
Grayson took a shot to the head yesterday, probably has a concussion, may have missed a game or two. Shout out to him. I think he actually was playing better lately, Grayson. So, yeah. Christmas Day, real quick. Spurs, it starts with Spurs-Knicks, then Timberwolves, Mavs, 76ers, Celtics. Boy, does that game seem a lot worse. Yeah, absolute blowout in that one. LeBron versus Steph, classic. Lakers at Golden State, and then the Suns here at home versus the Denver Nuggets again. Is this the third? I think this is the third time, right? Mm-hmm. Or maybe last year was Dallas. I think.
No, last year was Dallas.
Yeah,
so but the last Denver Christmas game was when Booker returned for 5 minutes and pulled his groin.
Yep, exactly. Yep. So that sucks.
So let's not do that.
No,
let's try to not do that again.
Like, we're all already knowing that this is probably going to be an embarrassment for the Suns, and it is what it is. Suns are in a weird spot right now, so if they find a way to win that game, then yeah, it'll be a surprise to me.
Our expectations, if you guys couldn't tell, are very low right now, and we're just begging for the franchise to give us something to root for. Bud, play Ryan Dunn, because that is at least one guarantee where when I watch him on the floor, I'm in it. I'm like leaning forward in my chair. I'm totally locked in. And I feel like he's encouraging other guys to be locked into the game. So play Ryan Dunn. That would at least be something. A little bit of Oso too wouldn't hurt. But,
and let him make mistakes. Just continue to don't play him 9 minutes because he, had a dumb turnover or 3 fouls in the first half or whatever. Just let him play through it.
Dude, his block. Yes, who is that block on? Why can't I remember?
Fontecchio.
Yes. The block on Fontecchio that was initially called a foul and had to be overturned. But that's what we've been waiting for out of the Ryan Dunn experience, and he's going to have more highlights like that this season.
Yeah, the more he plays, the more opportunities he has to do stuff like that. And yes, there will be players that kind of school him a little bit. But I also think there's an element of teams looking at a rookie and changing their whole offense to attack that one player over and over again actually benefits the Suns, because they're just the way they have to help when it's Tyus or Brad that need help is why they get so many threes scored on them too. So if you don't have to help because they're going one-on-one and shooting 2-pointers over Ryan Dunn, the math probably benefits the Suns in that case. And there is a world where actually they'll be fine, even though Ryan Dunn got scored on 3 or 4 times in a row. So just try it and see how it goes, and we'll see if that's something they end up doing. They have a good opportunity now. I think Royce has earned that starting spot, but they do have a good opportunity now to play a little bigger with Ryan Dunn in that starting lineup since Booker's not playing for a few games. Any of these games are you excited about, by the way, other than, we know we're going to watch the Suns Nuggets, but is there any other one that you're going to make sure to be seated for?
I'll watch LeBron, Steph. So I have to look at, I always kind of go to the movies on Christmas too. So I have to make sure that I get all my ducks in a row. For anyone who likes, movies coming out, there's actually a lot of good movies coming out this Christmas. I'm going to be seeing Nosferatu, I think, but there's a couple others that I need to see in the next few weeks. So yeah, I got to figure that out. But I probably will be seated for LeBron and Steph. And what did you say? What's the Spurs game? The first game? Spurs Knicks. Yeah, that sounds like a great game. Did you see Wemby had 10 blocks yesterday?
Yeah. I have that bet on him potentially getting a quadruple double this year, so I paid close attention to that, and he had 7 rebounds and 4 assists. I'm like, come on, man, at least get the rebounds.
Yeah, Chris Paul's gonna steal those assists from him, man. That makes it so difficult to get the quadruple double.
Yeah, it's true.
You almost need him to get 10 blocks and 10 steals and not get the assists.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's a good one too. I think there's really only one bad one, and well, potentially 2 if the Suns are injured in the same way again versus the Nuggets. But the Philadelphia-Boston game's potentially just an absolute disgusting blowout. Maybe it'll be the only good game.
Yeah,
though. You never know.
Maybe that might be when I look for a movie ticket during that one.
Exactly. All right, we'll be back after Christmas with a Patreon episode, and then, of course, our weekly schedule will get back to normal after that. I was out of town, so we missed a Patreon one this last week. My internet did not hold up in Mexico, so we'll give it a try later when I'm back in Phoenix. So appreciate everyone for listening and hanging out for this one. We'll be back later. Yeah, have a great Christmas, everyone.
For over a century, Johnny Walker has shared its bold spirit with the game of golf. Now, crafted with Devereaux Golf, Johnny Walker introduces the Johnny Walker Blue Label-inspired Sunday Golf Bag, elevating the game with sleek design, blue label hues, and refined gold accents. Celebrate your hole-in-one with a premium Sunday bag crafted by Devereaux Golf. Submit proof of your achievement to johnnywalker.com/blue-in-1. Please drink responsibly.